hold on. This conversation is being recorded for those in the Hustlers Under 40 group who didn't get to dial in tonight. And again, we're excited to have Justin Kanthak join us before he goes into his MBA night class, because he does 7,000 things. And so I just wanted a chance for Justin to share a little bit about his career and how everything has gone exactly as planned, and life is super just, handed to us all on silver platters, right? Justin,
Yeah.
break it down for us. How'd you
Well,
get here?
the funny thing is, I had a call with a woman who is trying to get involved with the Minnesota regional chapter this morning from Flavor Dynamics, and she asked me how I got on track of what I did, and I got here by getting dumped by a girl, and that is about where it all starts. So sometimes it gets you where you don't expect, and I always wanted to cook, so I actually bought a cookbook that's somewhere over there when I was 8. Kimberly knows this because she interviewed me and talked to me about it. And I bought it at a book sale for $1. And from then I started cooking for my friends' parents. I was like 10 years old, got myself all the way up. My parents were like, he's never going to want to do this. Then I put culinary on my class ring in high school. Then I went to culinary school. But while I was in culinary school, I had moved to California and started dating a girl who dumped me. And because she was so committed to my education, she offered to fill out the paperwork part of my applications for college. So I sent her 8 of them out of complete anger, and she filled them all out. And I felt so obligated. I had to mail them all in. And so that's how I got to go to food science. And truthfully, I would already been looking at school in food science already. So it was purely kind of like the circumstances of how I got across the line. But truthfully, it kind of started through some good advice, some pushing, and then going to do a lot of work. So I went to Iowa State, food science and microbiology, graduated, was a product developer working on breakfast cereal, the most culinary space in America, with Cargill. Then went to Schwann's as a corporate chef. I worked on the school lunch program. So I have a lot of passion for feeding children, along with chain accounts. I was mostly the broker between the sales culinary team and the R&D team, which meant I was hated by everybody because they either hated the good ideas or I let through good ideas that people didn't want to make, and was typically always making people angry. And from there, culinary director at Tate & Lyle. I got to learn how to use starches and sweeteners, and then had another good mentor opportunity and was told I should probably go into sales or finance or marketing. Marketing's a little squishy for me. Like it's a little softer around the edges, and I was a little bit harder from coming from culinary. And finance just wasn't going to happen. So I took the easy route and went to sales, and then went to Kellogg's, did a 18-month bit of time there, positively speaking, and then had the opportunity to come to Griffith and have been there now 4 years this next month. And as Kimberly saw today in an email, I think I'm on job title 6 or 7. So it's been a busy ride, but that's the cliff notes on how I got here. So.
Can you tell us about your volunteerism with RCA and how you got involved there?
Nope, not involved. Really don't dig the organization. Have nothing to do with it. I see a bunch of familiar faces from other committees. And Sara, good to see you from our board call yesterday. And Jaime, well, I see you every day because we're always talking because she's the treasurer. I started in the RCA in 2005. Kind of coincidentally, I was more or less a student IFT member and did this competition called the Midwest Food Processors Convention. It doesn't exist anymore, it's defunct. But we did a culinology competition with chefs from a bunch of food companies, and I was on a team with a group from ADM, a gentleman by the name of Brian Yeager and Eric White, who those who are still RCA frequenters know who Eric White is, and his wife, Diana Fricke. And I happened to get in touch with the organization then. Met Marshall Scarborough then. He was still a student. We were in our baby years, and then kind of didn't really get involved with RCA much more after that because Iowa State didn't have a chapter or anything remotely close to it. So I went to Cargill. They said you can join an organization. So I said, I'll just join this RCA thing and get more familiar there. And I went to the conference in Seattle. Absolutely hated the organization. Truthfully, that first conference, I really didn't like the RCA. The organization at that time is something that we're still trying to move from. It was very old white coats who really didn't like young white coats or people without white coats talking to them. And so this would have been 2007, 2008. And they called me techno chef, and it was not a nice thing. It was a derogatory term because they didn't like the food science and chef thing coming together. And so I walked around conference and there it's like, oh, Mr. Techno Chef, whatever that means. But I stuck with it because I really thought the mission and the vision of the organization was right. And really, ideally, it was going to be something that would be good for the future. So, what's the first way you can fix anything? You get involved, then you start taking control of it, and then you just take control of all of it. And then you get to do whatever you want as long as everyone lets you. So that's the best part about presidency is you just do what everyone else tells you to. You just try to make it happen with a little bit of vision. And so I joined the certification commission. I had gotten certified. I just gotten certified. I was at Schwann's. I got my CRC and CCS. I was the second person to get both certifications. And I did fail the CRC the first time. I missed it by one question. So if any of you gripe about, oh, I didn't pass it, I don't want to take it again, boo-hoo, I didn't pass it either. So yeah, that's a thing. Then joined the certification commission, worked on the exams, got to the kind of the pinnacle of the certification commission and had started helping the foundation, and actually was asked to help and step into the foundation because they were having some financial troubles, and recalibrating and redirecting the foundation to make it profitable again and actually be able to make it contribute for the future. Because when I inherited it, it was just about not being able to give out even one scholarship. So we managed to turn that around. At that time, we had $300 in the bank. They now have over $100,000 now, 6 years later, which is great. Through that work, I got involved with a handful of other committees, conference planning, just kind of as a support staff, and then got asked to run for the board. And so I did more committee work, got secretary, then treasurer last year, and then president 2 years ago. So I'm in my second term. Yeah. And it's all about trying to change things. I'll be honest, for any of you who know me, it's about making the organization that we want, not the organization we were given. So.
Yeah, never call Justin with a complaint without some idea of what would unstick you and what you're willing to do to de-stick yourself.
I'm just going to ask you more questions until you come to your own conclusions. So Jaime has to suffer through this. Jaime is part of my MBA course now. She's going to be my coachee. So I'm in coaching and mentorship right now. So we're going to see how that goes.
Lucky you,
No
Jaime.
promises. No promises.
It's going to be fantastic.
The price was right.
It actually, everything worked really well, aligned really well. I'm in a position in my career that I could use some leadership coaching, and so it actually aligned really well. But I did want to say that if you guys haven't already checked your emails, we have a practice test now available so that you don't have to follow in Justin's footsteps and fail. You can actually succeed the first time. And I posted that in the chat.
Failure is an option, but quitting isn't. So. Oh, and I did teach briefly at SMSU. So I'm not sure if there's any SMSUers on this, but I spent just about 2.5 years adjunct instructing for Michael Chang at SMSU. That's how I met like Hannah Dressen among a handful of other young, at that point in time, students. So Kaylee Riker with Carrie as well. So.
Well, let's talk about failure because 2020 has been a year of just burn it all down. It feels like it's either going to burn itself down or we're going to burn it down. And I want to talk about that moment where perhaps you might have pulled up the reins to say, am I really on the right pathway? And what were the things that went through your mind at that moment of, maybe it's failing the CRC, maybe it was a different point in your career to say, hold up, where am I going right now? And what are some considerations you made at that time?
So what's the question? There was a lot in there. There was a lot to unpack there. So what would be the key question there?
When you're at a failure point and you pulled up to say, what am I doing here? What were those thoughts that went through your mind?
Well, failure sucks. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that. It's never fun to fail. I guess usually when it starts, it's a self-assessment thing. Honestly, one of the biggest parts of my career was realizing that most of my time failure was not an external force or not anything else to blame on other people. A lot of it came down to me not doing something or not following through with something or not finding a better way to do something in the broad scope of stuff. So mostly it's inflection, and taking a lot of self-accountability on it. You're going to learn from your failures. You also learn from your successes. I don't want to be the guy who says, oh, you learn from all your failures, it's good to fail. It's sometimes good to learn from your successes as well. It's just good to learn and be aware of how you got to where you are. The hard part about being young and failing is the general assumption that you failed for some reason other than something you did. Now there are external things that cause you to fail, and that stuff's all important, but you can control the outcome. If you fail, you can stop, or you can do something else, or you can try again. It really comes down to how you want to motivate yourself.
What about being a young high performer? You know, I don't know you to be somebody who sits around waiting to get a promotion. So talk us through that. And I'll start with, and you know my career, I've jumped through jobs so that I can get promoted and continually get challenged. Looking at your resume, you've also moved quickly because you perform really well. And talk us through that. You know, there are a lot of high performers on this call, and I'd like to, you know, put some context to what they're feeling in their jobs.
When I came out of school, I was told you had to stay somewhere for 5 to 10 years, and I didn't. And a lot of people held that against me, and not industry wise, but just people who were like in my network of like, oh, you're not really committed. You're not really doing something. I mean, you really can grow in your singular job. If you find that you have a great opportunity, Emily, I'm looking at you, of an organization that's allowed you to grow and be successful with Mark at CullenX. If you find a great thing and you're willing to be, you know, flexible and take on new opportunities, growing within a channel is great. We also live in an industry now where there's a lot of opportunity to do a lot of different things. For me, I left Cargill because you couldn't get promoted more than one time without a PhD in the science channel I was in. Not going to happen. Didn't care that much. So I figured I could either take this opportunity to move or get my one promotion, then move again. And it happened to be that I had interviewed for another job, and through the negotiation of that salary, they actually pulled the salary out of my hands after we handshook on it. And I was so infuriated by this, I took a different job instead. So like, really, it's a matter of circumstance. But really, I knew what I wanted to do. And when I moved to Schwann's and went to Marshall, it was because I wanted to be back in the culinary side of things. And so kind of like every time I moved, it was to find something else I wasn't going to get within the stream I was in. And I felt comfortable taking the risk. And not everyone has the same risk tolerance I have. Not everyone in your career is going to have the same risk tolerance that you have, especially if you're a high performer. Where high performers struggle at times is when they're risk averse, but also highly successful because they can't
Google.
move. Okay, Google. Being able to move and be adaptable is key, because if you're a high performer and you're stuck in a track and you feel like you can't get promoted, you have to take the risk yourself to make a change. And that's either moving within your organization or moving to a new organization, or holding your managers accountable for setting a very rigid plan for you to follow to get promoted. Yeah, I've moved a lot of jobs. Griffith will actually be the longest job I'll have in stretch. I graduated in 2007, so 13 years later, and I'm on a 4-year job. And I'm happy here. I'm happy with the change I made to come to sales, but I also had a lot of jobs I wasn't happy at where they were at, and just made the decision to leave and do something else through my connectivity with the RCA, actually, for most of it.
So I know I've only heard stories actually from you on your past and how you had this horrible temper in the kitchen, and you were the one that threw pots and pans and all this other stuff. And knowing you now, right, I can say we're more than peers, we're friends, right? I mean, you come to my kids' birthday parties and I go to yours, but
both in the last 2 weeks. So.
Both in the last 2 weeks, right. We even plan our children around the same time. But what changed in you? Because I know there was a point in my life where I felt like I just grew up, right? Where other people kind of stay back and they're still living in the same place, or they're still doing the same things. What what made you change to kind of go from being that person that I don't think any of us know or had the opportunity to meet or even see, to the person that you are today?
So yeah, I would love to have some of my friends from the restaurant days who know me as not being a calm person. And I did dent a wall, and I did fire a frying pan and put a huge hole into something, and I broke a cutting board over a tabletop once. Rumors, maybe it never happened, I don't know. But like honestly, I came to corporate and I realized I was way out of my element. So when I went to Cargill, I was too scared to be who I was in that sense, because I just didn't know the environment. I had never worked corporate. I was the kid who made it through college without an internship. Don't recommend it. For anyone who's coaching students out there, they should have done internships. That was a dumb mistake on my part. But then I got to, because I would have learned this. And so I tried to adapt, and I tried to be someone different. And I got coaches, and I got mentors, and I had peers. And I had a good leader, a gentleman by the name of Luis Reyes. And they helped me kind of like come through this. But I can tell you, it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years later, one day it just started to work. And a lot of it had to do with getting over fear and being able to manage frustration in a more productive way. There's a lot about things that go on being in sales. There's a lot of things that go on in the RCA that are very frustrating. I'll be honest. But the only way, again, that I could either correct them or respond to them is what I controlling myself. You know, I could get mad and throw stuff and be fearful and scare people and, gang press them into solutions, but it doesn't really get you anywhere. It just, people will let you fail, and you'll have your own ideas. But at one point in time, you kind of just, one day I woke up and needed to grow up and realize it was in my control to do it.
I want to chime in because, Justin, I feel like we're so similar in some ways, but so different. I feel like I took the opposite approach. I grew up as a woman in a kitchen, and you have to form a tough skin relatively quickly, and you have to get used to speaking up and saying your mind, or you're just going to get walked all over. So when I showed up to culinology, to product development, I was like, here's what I think, here's what we're going to do. It looks like this, that tastes like shit. And people were kind of like shocked that I would like say anything. And I'm like, what? Like, this is, and it got me a lot further because I wasn't scared to like speak up. So I think as a young person and you're finding your way in the new culture, you either like don't know, so you don't do anything, or you do what I did and you just keep acting the same way, and you figure it out and you learn how to tone it up or down over the years. But that same thing that can make you feel out of place can also set you apart in this world of culinology. So don't like suppress it, too much. You got to like smooth out the rough edges.
Yeah, I think, Emily, you touched on something else. There's also a gender piece to that you can't really neglect, especially coming from restaurants and in the industry, that there is a level of swagger that women have to overcompensate with at times. It's not fair and it's not right. But that is something obviously as well that you had to experience yourself and utilize. For me, it was shifting the other direction and completely putting that to bed to get through it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we got a couple questions on the side, and I can go a couple minutes longer if that's okay with you, Kimberly. I'm going to take a photo of this so I can tell my teacher that my coaching and mentoring class, I was out talking to people about things. So he can, I should maybe get extra credit for this. Who knows? But question we have, how about finding the right fit in the industry? Katie E, where are you at, Katie? So about finding the right fit in the industry, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Any thoughts? I'm just saying, like, professionally, like I'm kind of trying to flesh that out a little bit.
I guess just because I've like done a lot, but I haven't really found exactly, which, are in product development, or is it, more research, or is it sales, or is it this and this and this? And being in Seattle, there are not as many opportunities, but still just finding the right niche within the niche, I guess. Got it.
Just keep trying new things. I mean, right there, it's going to be a risk tolerance thing. If you're comfortable changing roles or comfortable taking on new things, people will give it to you. I mean, if you're good at your job, people give you the opportunity to try something different. For me, sales is something that ironically, I probably should have been doing. But I did it purely because I was guided to, and I took a risk to do it. So just try new stuff. If you don't like it, quit, go back and do something else. I hate to say that for all the employers out there, but it's your life too. They don't own you. So,
or if your company if your company has other departments like marketing and sales, get involved, start interacting with them, make it a personal goal to meet with a different group once a quarter just to learn their positions, or go on a sales call if you can through your organization. That's kind of how I was able to get involved with sales and learn if I wanted to do it before I jumped in. So.
Totally agree. So I see Sam's question over here. Sam, you never age. You look the same for like the last 6 years I've known you. It is amazing. I appreciate that.
I got that a lot. Yep.
It's your youthful exuberance. I appreciate it. One day it goes away. You get old. So enjoy that.
We'll see.
What are important characteristics in a leader in food science and culinology industry, and why? Actually, it's more or less just what's important about being a leader. Confidence, admitting that you mostly don't know the answers, trying to solicit good feedback from people, asking open-ended questions, and learning your voice, not having one necessarily right out the gate, but learning it. When you're young, you do have to manage when you provide insight and feedback. You kind of have to earn the right at times because you have to have the experience at times as well. But the more you have confidence and the more you showcase your skills, the more you should have a voice, and the more you can kind of become a leader out of it. So it's really a mixture of patience and experiential learning. From food science and culinology, it's got to take time, and you got to take risks and learn. I wish it was more cool than that, but
no, it's very true. Definitely.
Melinda, let's see what we got. Talking to people about things they love, how vague. Professor will definitely go for it. What does that mean? Where are you at? Melinda's right below me, and I've known her for too many years now, because I remember when she was a freshman in college, which seems like forever ago, but it couldn't have been that long ago. I don't know. How many years ago now?
Almost 6 years. Too long.
See? And now you get to enjoy Omaha. So
yeah. I love it. Doing great here, except that it's 95 degrees. I thought I left that in Texas. What the heck?
So what do you mean by your comment here? Talking to people about things, how love? Yeah, what do you mean by that?
That was what you said.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what I say. I just say stuff. And then if you guys listen, if it sounds
fun of you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Joke to your professor.
I have so many faces looking at me. It's like sensory overload. So, and I feel like all this energy coming through the screen. So, well, before I jump off, anything else? Any other burning questions? Any pondering thoughts? What are the shirt? Oh, Magic the Gathering. Nerd alert. For those who live in Seattle, Wizards of the Coast headquarters is in Renton. And I have friends who work for that company. And if there was any job I would ever do in the food industry that's not this, I would go work for them. Only job I would quit the industry.
I didn't know that was still a thing.
Yeah, they're owned by Hasbro. Like they're big money. They're like $1 billion brand.
You just call them a Hasbro.
Jeez, Emily, it's in your backyard.
I grew up in Seattle with like people playing like Dungeons and Dragons in like Seattle city parks. Like it's a thing here.
It was kind of discovered there. Company named TSR. It's kind of a Seattle thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, are you reading? I was like, there's actually a really good question that just came in. I'd like for you to address, please.
Thanks, Jamie. Keeping me on task. That's what her job is. What are ways that food scientists can get more experience in culinary to be able to transition into the research chef space? Well, there's a lot of tracks to that. The old school way was always adding a culinary degree and going in the restaurant space. That's still feasible. It's just not always the best. Because it's just not something that you can do when you're working a full-time job or you're willing to quit and give up your health insurance to go get beat up for a couple of years. It's not super great. But what you can do is, we live in a world of virtual trainings and education. Ruby is a great resource online. I know, Emily, you've got some experience with them. We've seen your face out there with eggs and such. We also have organizations like the RCA. We have continuing education courses. It's a Google search away. It all depends on what you want to learn. and what you can prove. Because at the end of the day, whoever's going to hire you is going to make you cook for them, and you better be able to do it. And they're probably going to judge you harsher because you didn't come from the restaurant industry. It's kind of just the rules of engagement. So you really got to have the curiosity to want to learn and understand. Oh, someone just brought me dinner. Great. So I'm starving.
Well, on that note, cooking, just cooking, and cooking every day, cooking thoughtfully, being interested in food, just like trying things out, reading Food and Wine, looking at Instagram, all of those things that you might do in your spare time, a lot of people choose not to do. Their job is their job and they go home and whatever. If you have interest in culinary, it should come naturally. It does to me anyways, but like spend that free time investing in yourself and just kind of staying up to snuff. And so when it comes time to cook a meal, it's not this big deal. You already are working on it.
And be around people who talk food. Be around people who talk food.
Yeah, just
make it part of what you do.
And I can comment, I saw Kimberly put the Ruby link. So Ruby is an online culinary school, and we recently did some egg functionality curriculum, but they've got whole programs on culinary stuff, and it's all online. It's all like self-guided. It's really cool. You like do these assignments and they get graded. You take pictures or video. So it's really cool. I would definitely encourage you to check it out.
On that note, guys, I got to go get my learn on, because it's always about being a continuous student. One more year. And then thank you guys. Kimberly, thanks for reaching out. Good to see everyone I don't know. Nice to meet you all. There's definitely a lot of you I do know. Good to see you guys as well. Jamie, I'll see you tomorrow. Sorry, Kimberly, I'll probably talk to you tomorrow as well. So anyway, guys, have a good night. Thanks. Hope to come back soon.
Thanks, Justin.
See you guys.
Bye, Justin.
And I'll, I mean, his contact information is obviously available on the RCA website, or I work for him, so you can also ask me for his contact information. We all work for him. Yeah, it's true. It's really true. You all work for him.
I do think, though, that also we're all in the same, this is going to sound weird, I don't mean for it to, but this is a safe space, and I think that we all want to help each other. So if there's anybody out there who's like, man, I don't know what I would even start, I don't even know what I would need to know if I wanted to do culinary, or I mean, those are questions that if you know someone, obviously they're comfortable with, ask them. Otherwise, if anybody needs help learning, knife cuts, or, sauces, stocks, and soups, or not only do most of us would be honored to ship our books to you, we would be happy to show you and to teach you. And so keep that in mind too, if you're stumbling on trying to find opportunities now with, you can't really stage, and, sometimes the culinary department is different than the R&D department, but the R&D does more of X and culinary does more of Y, and you want to do B. And so, I mean, there's always opportunity. And I think that if you posted in the Hustlers group on the Discord page, I'm positive
100%.
that you would get people to, so
yeah. Emily would love for you to text pictures of dishes that you're trying to make to edit for you. She has tons of time right now. Yeah. It was really fun to get Justin's perspective. I think Jamie and I have unique perspectives from each other, even with how we work with Justin and how, our lives have interacted with his over time. So he was like, yeah, I was waiting for you to ask me to come into the Hustlers group and chat. And I was like, well, you are technically a hustler, I think. He is very much a hustler. So if you haven't met him yet, please just go get in touch with him. He spits coaching advice constantly. So, have a notebook or something. Okay. Does anyone have any burning questions that they wanted to ask or share about with regard to making the most of our current career and job situation? Any questions that you didn't get answered or get to ask yet?
I feel like I've talked a lot, but as someone on the more upper end of the Hustlers group, I will say that the thing that's gotten me the furthest, and I think that my biggest advice would be to do the job that you want. Like, take it on, start doing it, start thinking and acting and showing up in the way that the direction you want to go. Whether it's shadowing or meeting people in your organization. I've interviewed, but I've still, haven't left Colonix because these things happen when you make them happen for yourself. Don't wait for someone to ask, or if it becomes clear that you're not going to get what you want where you are, you got to do it yourself. But just showing up in the way that you want to is step one.
I could not agree more. And also, if you want something, what do? You ask for it, because you know what they can say. Yes. If you don't give someone the opportunity, you're never going to get it. So we always think, well, I did such a great job, I can't believe I didn't get a bigger bonus. Or I did this, I can't believe, I didn't get a raise. Or how come I'm only getting this? Or how come that person got that project? And it's like, well, obviously no one else is inside your head but you. So nobody knows how hard you work but you, right? And you have this warped perception of how things should be. So I have found that with the courage of an audio book that I listened to a few years ago, I was just like, why don't I ask? I can prove that I deserve this. Why wouldn't I? And you know what? I got a raise, and then I got a promotion. And then it just kind of, to Emily's point, I don't necessarily think that going up is always good. I think forward progress is most important, whatever that means to you. As long as I'm continuing to learn, to grow, to do what I feel is most important, that's what I go do. I don't have anybody tell me I need to do it. I go out and find it. So don't be afraid to ask for anything. There's no reason that you should be.
Or express interest. Tell them you want to do it. Tell them what really jazzes you, what really gets you out of bed. Like, I want to work on that project. Like, be that person that they'll remember. Oh yeah, I think they like that kind of stuff. If you don't.
And I'd say, like, being young like we are, you kind of get in your head and you build it up to be more than it is, but you have this persona in your head that you're too young to do something, or you're too young to be that important, or like Justin's already a director. I mean, he's young. And that's things that we build up and talk in our head, and it's things we have to overcome ourselves. But kind of when I was working on the ingredient side and walked my way into a sales promotion, it was because I went out on all those sales calls, being the technical support. And I mean, I went on more sales calls than some of the sales reps when I was in R&D, and walked into that promotion and never thought I wanted it till they actually asked, hey, do you want this? And I was on a sales call like 1 or 2 months into my job, and a lady, I wouldn't expect it from a lady, and she said, how old are you? And I told her, and she said, you're too young to be doing this. And at the time it hit me, and I was like, well, am I, or did I take that as a compliment? So it's one of those things where you just got to build up the confidence in your head that you do deserve it. You are who you are, and you're going to go out and do it. So it's one of those things like self-talk, you can't let it get to you. You just got to go do what you want.
Yeah, that's so true. Like for me, like growing up, it was cultural. Like my parents told me, like, I'm not supposed to speak up. It's like, you're not only a woman, but you're younger, so you don't get to say what your opinions are. So I've been kind of like struggling to fight against that. And I've been finding, the more you speak up and like, not be afraid of failure and just try, that more things actually happen, which is amazing.
I think that's a really solid transition for Chris McAdams. He and I were chatting. I had a career question for him, and I was like, Chef, I have a question. Give me a reality check here. And Chris, you gave me some advice that I've really just took to heart. I was wondering if you could share that with the group here.
Yeah, it was something I've learned throughout my career, and this is something actually that it came up about a year ago with the chef that I work with as well, Allison, who was at a women's career conference and specifically focused on women, talking about how women essentially more often than not will not apply to a job that they do not feel 100% qualified for. And I have always lived under the impression that if you're 40% qualified for the job, you apply for it. And so it's always been my rule of thumb. If you're 40% qualified, you apply. Because the truth is, there's not that many employees out there. Every company puts out their wish list for the employee they want. They want you to be 22 with 10 years of experience and a doctorate. It's just like, you're looking for a unicorn, and it's nothing but goats around you. So like, eventually you're just going to have to pick a goat. So you just find the prettiest one in the flock. But I joke, but it's serious at the same time, because you really, like, that's, of course, I want all of these things, but you can't have everything you want. And a lot of time it's really the intangibles of once you get your foot in the door and they meet you and they see your personality, your work ethic, your action. That's kind of what sells you. Because really, I mean, as an employer and as somebody who's hired and fired people in the past, like, I'm much more interested in the intangibles than things that I can train. You know what I mean? Like, I can train somebody how to do certain skills in the kitchen. I can give somebody a book and help them learn some of the sciences if they're missing some gaps. But you can't teach somebody to be responsible. You can't teach somebody to show up on time. You can't teach somebody to be organized. And you can't teach somebody to not act like an idiot in front of a group of executives. So, like, and yes, I've seen all of these things happen. So, but like, so those people are the ones that get hired and fired really quick. And the people that stick to it and keep applying and just keep going after the job, they're the ones that are going to be in the spot that fits best for them. I mean, that's really what happened for me. I was a late in life transition into this career field. I didn't go to culinary school until I was 27 years old. It came out of it. And my background was in nutrition and dietetics, which is, yeah, it's kind of like, it's got a little bit of overlap, but it's not exactly like the culinology route. So I wasn't a great fit for this career field, but that didn't stop me. When I found out the RCA existed, the first thing I did was go to that year's list of award winners, and I sent each one of them an email requesting an interview. And one of them just happened to be your boss over there, Emily, and he was very courteous and was like, "Oh, thank you for your interest, but we're not hiring right now." But I got lucky, and one of those people was my boss right now, Allison Rittman. And so she's been with the industry, or she's been in the industry for 30 years. She's extremely smart, and she flew me out to Austin, gave me an interview, and offered me a job on the spot. And I was shocked and scared. I was like, holy crap, like, I'm an imposter here. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't deserve this position. But I just dove in head first and learned everything I could, got connected in the RCA, started talking with people, met Kimberly, met Jamie, met Belinda, met Jerome, and just kind of grew and sort of gave me the confidence. And at some point, maybe 2 years ago, I finally started to feel like I belonged. And it was a good feeling. And now, like, I was just talking about this the other day, it was pretty funny. I had a couple chefs from companies that I really respect call me to ask me for advice on a project they were on. And I was confused. It's like, did you call the right person? Like, you meant to call me? But no. And it's kind of just that feeling like you can grow into a position as well. So don't be shy about putting yourself out there. Really, you have to be confident. You have to own yourself, and you have to own your career, because no one else is going to do it for you.
You touched on two very important things. Feeling like an imposter, with that whole imposter syndrome, is huge. And then also, I don't want people to think that you need to be super extroverted to be successful. There's a plethora of ways that people who are introverted or less outgoing are able to also connect. So that first contact via digital platform, or, you know, having all of your ducks in a row before you go into an event space, so you know exactly who you want to go talk to, exactly what you want to talk about. You're in, you're out, you're back in your safe space, back in the room or whatever. There's a lot of opportunity for people who aren't as, you know, if you know me, you know I'm very extroverted, and I don't have a problem doing anything for the most part. But it took a long time for me to realize that I can't just grab someone by the hand, right, and take them with. They need to be comfortable in their own skin, in their own ways, to be able to be successful and productive with their own, you know, restrictions. And then imposter syndrome. Holy man, if you guys don't know what that is, Google it, because let me tell you, you have probably gone through it in your life. You're like, how did I get here? This isn't right. I can't be here. What if they find out that I'm not good enough, not smart enough, not brave enough? I don't know about, I mean, I'm not ashamed to say I don't know anything about chemistry, and I'm a research chef. But you know what I'm doing about it? I'm learning about it. I'm a vice president. I don't know anything about chemistry. Those aren't, you know, those don't go together. They don't have to go. They're not mutually exclusive, right? So don't feel, I'm the youngest female in an all-male meat company who holds one of the highest positions. So if you think you've got imposter syndrome, let me tell you what I deal with all the time. I'm too young. I'm a woman. I don't know this. I don't know that. But you know what? None of it's true. So once you get past where you are in life and where you want to be mentally, you do. I mean, Emily said it perfectly. I did the same thing when I got out of restaurants. I was loud. I was Jaime. That's what I did. I always had to speak up. I always had to do it because otherwise I was just, you know, making salads and frosting cakes. So 2 things, imposter syndrome and being an introvert is totally fine. Keep those in mind as you move forward in your journeys.
And that's a great point, Jaime. Thank you for talking about that, because everybody looks at me as an extrovert, but I had to train to kind of get to where I am today. Like, it was a very active process. I was very introverted in high school and all the way, like when I first joined the military, I was very introverted, but it essentially got broken somewhere along the way where I kind of became a forced extrovert, is what I always call it. But so much of it is about fit with a company. It's not always about the skill set as much as it is about sort of the fit. And so you find your home when you start applying. And I think if I remember correctly, it took me 68 applications and I got 3 interviews and 1 job offer out of that. So I mean, it was a lot of work, but it was all about finding the right fit and where I belonged within this industry and where I could succeed. So I get that a lot when people talk to me about like the career transition, because a lot of people ask me, because I was in a late in life transition, and people my age are like, well, you know, how did you do it? It's like, well, you know, you just at some point have to do it. And then you just have to learn to go headfirst into it and see what happens. And yeah, it's scary. I did the same. We sold our home. We sold all of our possessions. We moved to London so I could train out there. And then we came back here to Colorado, lived in my wife's parents' basement for 6 months until I got a job, and then moved to Austin, Texas. So yeah, I mean, risks everywhere, like Justin was talking about. But I really wanted to do this job. I was so tired of doing jobs I hated. I was so tired of just like hating 8 hours of every day of my life. So I was very determined to find my way into this career field. And luckily for me, it worked out. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. And it is definitely harder if you are more introverted, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. You just have to find the right fit, and you just have to work at it differently.
Yeah, I've always compared my career and honestly our work as product developers to rock climbing. And in rock climbing, we have this phrase or this description of the way that you get up the rock as beta. And, you know, Kate has actually belayed me. So I'm going to just double down into that image of, you know, someone else is belaying you. So there's somebody else on the other side of the rope. And they are either encouraging you up because they're like, hey, there's a toe hold at your knee, just, you know, lift your foot. Or in Kate's case with me, she's kind of tugging me up the wall. Either way, your beta is your own and your beta is valuable. We need each person's beta, as unique as it is. And even though our titles all might look similar to each other's, Chris's work as a research chef is going to look totally different than Jaime's work. And we need both in the industry. There's room for us all, right? So, you know, I'm a flaming extrovert. This is the only outlet that I have to see friends right now. It's killing me. And my career has been all about falling forward, whether that's because someone is like, so the sidewalk's over here, and I'm like, cool, and I'm like running down the road. Or, you know, like in my case with coming to Griffith, Justin gave me a chance. He was like, hey, you ask smartish questions, come and learn from me about business development and sales. And if you hate it, you can always leave, but give it a fair shake, right? And that's what I would argue for you all, is give these attempts a fair shake and get up and do it again. Chris, I didn't know you applied for 68 jobs and got 3 calls and 1 offer. You know, for me, I was telling Jaime.
Sorry, I was doing that while I was in London. So I was basically, when I was getting off of work, coming home, and then applying for jobs at like midnight. So, and then I was doing like my interviews via Skype at like 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning, because that was normal working hours on this side of the world. So you just do what you have to do.
Yeah. What I was telling Jaime yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I had 20 jobs before I got to R&D. So, you know, I know we look like we're fully baked, normal people, and there's some superstars in our group here whose career paths look really straightforward. But I think if you sat down with any of us, we would tell you that it was not straightforward. We're kind of fumbling forward, and it's okay. I think there's beauty in that fumble, in that all of the scars that you earn, whether you're working a brunch service or you climbed or, you know, whatever that looked like, those scars were earned. Those lessons are built in now, and you're the type of leader you're going to be because of these, right? So I know there are a couple of questions I've gotten offline and personally from people about how to go out and get the job that they're looking for, especially when there aren't a ton of openings right now. There's a lot of frozen hiring, and there's a lot of reduction of budgets, you know, so you might not get the raise you want or things like that. So I want to start talking through that. I know we only have a few minutes though. So how do you feel about bumping the Q&A career management to next conversation so that we can kind of have that be another point? Okay. So for September, what month are we? For September, we'll do another career chat and do Q&As. So feel free, please, to send me questions, and I'll probably precede a couple of people to either ask the question live, and then a couple of folks to have thought of some of their answers and experiences based on that. But I am gonna, you know, we have a couple of minutes, so if you would like to make sure that the group hears something or we can talk about one of the topics, floor is yours.
I'd just chime in, Kimberly. I know a lot of people are looking for jobs, and just from what I've seen, if you're willing to move, I know that's one of the downfalls. Some of you are tied to certain areas, but there's a lot of jobs out there. Charles Hayes is hiring right now at Deli Star. He's an RCA board member in St. Louis. Dairy Fair is hiring out of Jacksonville, Florida for a research chef's role. There's a lot of jobs out there, so I just keep at it if you can be flexible and can move. It's kind of like what Justin said. I mean, moving's one of the downfalls. Some of you can, some of you can't, but sometimes you have to get that progression. And there are jobs and there are people hiring right now. So
I like to joke that you have to kind of adopt the gypsy mentality. Just kind of like, be concise, pick up and go, do what you have to do.
Yeah, I did want to chime in that I only got into R&D because I left Chicago and I went to California. So I never would have got into R&D with my first job until I went out there right after culinary school. So found my way back to Chicago. But 10 years in California with one company out there definitely set the foundation for my R&D career.
Make sure that you guys sorry, my kids are screaming. Make sure that you realize time is what you make it. So everyone wants everything now, right? You want a job now, you want to get this done. You need to realize that everything needs to come in small bites, right? What do they say? You can't, like, you have to one bite at a time on an elephant or something. I don't know who eats elephants, but that's not, it's a saying for a reason. And just remember that you have to take small bites in one direction so that you can get to whatever fork in the road that makes sense for you. And also, we are at the most opportune time for you guys to create your own positions, people. I talk with my clients for my side gig here, and they're like, well, I've got all this experience. I don't know how to do this. I go, but what do you know? Focus on what makes you valuable. What do you offer? And what is, you bring a solution, right? And if you don't bring a solution, find the problem that your solution fixes. And especially with everything going on now where you can have multiple opportunities at different things virtually, you might not have to travel. You might not have to do things. So create your own position. There's always that opportunity.
That's really good. I jotted that down, you know, identifying the problems, because you do all have superpowers that you're uniquely set up to serve and to solve. Figure out what that is, you know, or ask us, because you might be surprised what we think of you, you know, either what we identify is your strength, ways that we might be able to help you, like Jamie had mentioned earlier, or Emily had, you know, of use our circle. This is why this network exists. This is why we all get together once a month, is to support each other, because I want to see each of y'all be on the board one of these days. I want to see you take on those VP roles. I want you to be there so that we can get to the industry that we want, right, that we're building.
A double emphasis on what Jamie said. A few of you know that I was in marketing prior to coming to R&D, and I went through this process with Jamie, Justin, and Kimberly on building a presentation that now I present when I'm interviewing, and it has changed the interview game for me and kind of building that dream position that I do want. I go in right off the bat and I say, this is me, this is what I've done, this is what I can do in this position, and how can we tie my whole background together and tell them why they need my background in marketing. And it's a really cool opportunity to build exactly what you're looking for in a position, because I think a lot of people who are hiring are flexible with the details, and you won't be pinholed into the job description that you're reading online. How can you build on that?
Exactly. People don't understand that you don't need to fit the job description perfectly. I mean, Chris, that 40% thing, I can't believe I'm just hearing about this, because that has been like, it rings so true when you're like, you know what, what's going to happen if you don't apply? Nothing. What's happening now? Nothing. So apply, do it. I don't understand. And you guys, you are so much better than you think you are. You know so much more than you think you do. And the only way anyone's ever going to know that is if you bring it up. If you somehow, whether it's asking something, being involved in something, collaborating on something else, applying for that job, but you're kind of maybe sort of only interested in, because you never know. I mean, Dairy Fair, there are companies in our organization alone that have multiple locations, so you can travel within it. That's why I always wanted to work at a hotel, right? Because then you could be like in Boca Raton, then you could go to Paris, and then, but you're with the same organization. So, I mean, there's always a solution, and there's always a silver lining to something. You just got to figure out what that is.
Final thoughts from the gallery?
No, but I'm cooking jambalaya.
Oh, I'll send you my address.
I import all my seasonings from Louisiana, so.
Awesome.
I'm going to do a shameless self-promotion here, because this is, I'm so passionate about this topic, and I'm so disgusted by people that don't take up mentorship, either as a mentor or a mentee. Because I mean, what is wrong with you if you don't do that? There's something, I think, wrong with you if you don't. There's a beautiful, my dog is barking, I apologize. But like, to Lindsay's point, her presentation was unreal. And that is a game changer. I've never seen anything like that. And I think that sets her apart completely. But I mean, I've got a ton of free resources on my website. I'm not saying go to it and pay me money to do things for you. That is not what I'm saying. There's a reason that I have it. And there's a reason that I do this. It's because the value as a human being that you guys have is unreal. And the biggest problem is that you guys don't know what it is. So whether I'm the person to help you, it's not what I'm getting at. Everyone on here can help each other. And there are people in your companies, in your families, in your circle of friends and peers that are your champions. And you know who they are. We can't tell you who they are. Go to them. Ask them what makes you better than someone else. And write this down and do something about it. Don't just, well, I really should apply for that. I mean, it's kind of like, you should have applied for it weeks ago, people. Why haven't you? Is it because it takes time to write it up? It's your life. Write your own, do something with it.
Yes, Jamie.
But I'd say, that's the whole point why we have this group. So if you were lucky enough to have a mentor in college through the RCA or through any organization, I was fortunate enough to have great mentors and get to go on those dinners during IFT or RCA conferences. And all those people are friends from like 20 years ago. So that's the whole point of this, is to build those lifelong friendships and have dinners 20 years from now at RCA conference. So we have to do it through a virtual world right now, but this isn't the whole point going forward. So.
I've got to take my kids to swimming, but I love all of you, and I'm always here for you. And I know Chris, and I know Kim, and I know Jerome, and Lindsay, and I know Melinda, and I'm only speaking for people that I can legit back up. All right, Sam, we are all here for you. If you know us, if you don't know us, we are all available, and we're all the time. So please, if you ever need anything, always reach out, because we are always here.
Yeah, don't struggle alone at all.
Goodbye.
You know, as if something seems completely trite, just reach out anyway. You know, like, you might be surprised. I might have gotten bruised on the same stupid ledge. So just, you know, talk to us. You know, thank you to those of you I've called recently with questions. It's, you know, we're here, and we are we're excited to see where this industry goes. You know, the RCA is in for a challenging year, and we need to step up. We need to be there and shape it to be the industry that we want it to be, and the association we want it to be. I know that Sarah and I are going to be hitting you up as far as like membership organization activities that we're doing. But you know, Sarah has a whole lot more access to information than I do. If you have a question about what's going on in the organization, I know that Justin and Jaime and a lot of the other board members are willing to share what's happening and what you can do to help. So get involved, and then let's use this. Let's use this association. Let's use this network. All the folks on this call, the other 49 people in our group, there are people there. Let's talk to them, right? I want to respect your time. I will stay online a little bit longer if y'all want to talk. But for those who have to bounce, thank you so much for joining. I'll be sending out another doodle for September's get together. And don't forget to join the Discord conversation. It got a little quiet because I think we all got busy, but share the things you're making. Ask questions, invite us to events. Aquino, I think she jumped, but oh no, there you are. Thank you for sharing out a couple of the events that you know about as well. So thank you all.
Thank you, Kimberly.